Thought I'd do a video in support of the males who've fallen in love, maybe females. I have kind of heard something along these lines for females too, but mostly males, who have fallen in love with a female, and because they have a deep set desire to be with that person, not sexually, but to be with that person because they love them, that person, that and they get seen as being a stalker or a fanatic or obsessive or weird or strange. And I was listening to the song by Peter and Gordon. I go to pieces when she passes by, and it's the effect. You see someone you love, and you're physically, mentally, spiritually drawn to that person you love. So you want to walk up and put your arms around that person, or you want to walk up and say, "Hi, how are you?" You want some kind of connection going there because your whole body longs for the connection. The weird and the really weird thing about all the females that accuse males of stalking them, who are just, the males are just in love, is that the females adore songs like Go to Peace by Peter and Gordon, and songs where, what was the Sting song? I can't remember the name of it. The Police brought out a song where he says he's basically a stalking song where he says, "Oh, every breath you take, every move you make, I'll be watching you." And that was a huge hit, and no one sees anything wrong with the song. Um, People fall in love, it's an uncontrollable thing. It's, you see the big mistake, the modern version of love is the mind. Your mind tells you who you're in love with, which really is just a convenience. A lot of people decide they're in love when they go to a party, have sex with them that night, wake up the next morning in their arms and thinking, "Wow, that was amazing." Have sex again and think, "Well, I'm staying with this person," and that's it. And if the sex and there are things that they get on with, like they both play a particular sport or they have similar interests, it becomes marriage. But it's not love. It's convenient. It works out. It's something that just happened and appears like love, but eight, 8 years down the line, it turns into a divorce, or it just carries on forever for their lifetime. I've known many people who are not in love, and they've had what you would call a successful marriage. At least they stay together for a certain period of time, but a lot of them do actually have affairs behind the other one's back, and the other one never finds out. And the reason for the affairs is they weren't in love in the first place. Anyone you're with who has an affair, sexual affairs with other people, doesn't love you, because a person who's truly in love does not do an activity that would drive the other person crazy or break their heart. You would just instantly realize that breaking their heart would be a horrible thing to do. So you wouldn't want sex with someone else because it would break the person who loves you's heart. So if they have sex with someone else, it's not love. It's, and as the Bible says, love does not fail. So if you're in a relationship, the relationship fell apart, but you felt you were in love with the other person, and they walked off and had sex with someone else and things like that, it wasn't love. There are many, many mental reasons or logical, materialistic, or other reasons like insecurity. If you're very, very insecure and you don't quite say, you mean like I was very insecure all my life, Every time I got into a relationship, I didn't want to let her go. I always thought it was love. I thought I was clinging to her because I desperately wanted her and I wanted to keep her. I thought this must be love, and it wasn't. It was insecurity. I just didn't want to let go of what I had. I'd grabbed hold of this woman. She'd become my girlfriend or whatever, and I didn't want to let her go. And I was insecure, and I didn't want to break up with her, and that made me clingy. It made me fight for what I thought was love. Made me fight for what I thought was romance, marriage, and it wasn't any of those things. It was just I'd been brought up in a home where I didn't learn how to control my emotions. My mother and my father did not love themselves. It was a convenient relationship because mum and dad got pregnant with my older sister, and they were forced into marriage by everyone else, so they thought it was a good idea. But it wasn't love. There was no love there at all. So I'd never seen love. And I'd see a female and I think, oh, she's pretty. She's got beautiful eyes. She's sweet. She's kind. She's everything I could ever want. Therefore, I must be in love. And it's a crush. I looked at the painting and I liked the painting. If she had a nice figure, then I liked the figure as well as the face and the painting. So, and women work very hard these days to present themselves as a face, as a painting, with all that makeup, the smell of perfumes, and whatever they put on, and their clothing, and their earrings, and everything to make himself look absolutely gorgeous, so that when the guy sees her, he just falls for. It looks like there was a very famous cartoon many years ago with this man and a woman. They marry and it's on their wedding night, and they go to hop into bed. And obviously, they never had sex before. And they go to hop into bed, and she sits at the dresser and takes off her wig, then her false eyelashes, then her falsies, chest falsies, then her false teeth, then her what else? I think she might have had a false arm or something. I can't remember. But she took all these things off, and by the time he realised who he'd married, he was absolutely horrified. So, people dress themselves up to be presentable so that the people fall in love with their looks and the presentation that's been put before them and marry that. And then no wonder there's divorces when people find out what they've married was all superficial, and what was really important was this person's character, heart, and soul, which they ignored because they wanted the picture. The perfect body, the muscles, the title. The many titled people are very nasty. The wealth and many rich people are very nasty and have no respect for people. It's like Sean Connery liked hurting women. He thought it was quite fine to slap a woman around, just to put her in place. And he is adored. He's been voted a few times as the sexiest man in the world. So, by women, and which he likes to slap around. When you fall in love with someone in the genuine sense, you have no control. There's no. It's very hard to explain. Like a lot of people love at first sight, is when you Paul Michael Glaser did that with his. I think it was a second one. I'm not really sure. He was driving along the road and he looked at the car next to him, and this woman was in there and she smiled at him. He looked at him and smiled. He pulled up at the next stoplights and he jumped out and he said, would you like to go out tonight or something? He just, the moment he saw her, he said he fell madly in love with her just by a glance in the car. And thankfully, she was a decent woman and didn't see him as a stalker. And she said, oh, of course. And Paul Michael Glaser's actor in Starsky and Hutch, the original 1970s, I think it was 70s or 80s, TV series. And I think this was before he became famous. And they went out and they dated, but they married and were happily married for many years. It has a genuine love has a very strong pull to it. The only trouble is some people don't love with their hearts; they love with their minds. So if I were to fall in love with my heart to a female, but she only knew how to love with her mind because she was materialistic and basically, what do they call it? Shallow. Then she'd look at me and say, "Get away from me," because she was looking at me with her eyes and her mind was logicking that and saying, "He's too poor, he's crippled, he's overweight, he's whatever." She's got this list of things in here that says, "No, I'm not doing that." But him, he's full of his heart. He looks at her and thinks, I can't marry anyone else. It has to be her. He doesn't know why he's fallen in love with his heart. He's fallen in love with her, but he has. And there is a very strong belief that used to exist before these materialistic times where everyone believed that God chose the person that you were to marry. And it was done in a spiritual sense where God would see who he was, at that particular age. God would see who she was and they would be a perfect match. They would heal each other, they would look after each other, and many things like that. The only problem is if God matches the two together and one of them is materialistic and the other one is genuinely loving, the materialistic one will see the advances of the loving person as stalking. And so this video is kind of like in defense of the people who are genuinely in love, and the materialistic ones will punish them for that love. They will hurt them, they will do many, many things. And it'll get to the stage like if it was a female. Say the guy tried advances for a year. At the end of the year, she was sick to death of him. So she called the police. She got friends to threaten him. She was playing the victim, and the more she did this, the more she realized people were feeling sorry for her, and she was getting invited to places, and everyone adored her and everyone was starting to hate the guy. But the guy's genuine. It's her that's not genuine, but as long as the people around her are shallow like her and only think with their minds, then they see her as an angel and him as a stalker, as a bad, evil person who won't leave her alone. He's utterly confused. He can't figure out. He keeps hoping because he's in love with her that she'll see the light, and one day she'll get him. So, and that's where you get the songs like, I go to pieces every time I see her, and my eyes adored you, but I never laid a hand on you. There are many, many broken-hearted songs about that, about someone falling in love with someone and the other one turning them away, and it's really sad stuff. The thing with the example I'm giving of the female and the male is on we'll say a year and a half or 2 years, she finally figures out that she's in love with him, with her heart. But by then she's invested so much time into playing the victim and so much time into shaming him publicly, just basically destroying his life in many, many ways. He could get into other relationships, but people don't trust him anymore because he was stalking her. So when she finally figures it out, she's so heavily invested in accusing him and attacking him that she realizes now she's never going to find love because she just shot it through the heart. And she doesn't want to mentally shame herself of to the public and admit the horrific thing she's done to an innocent person. He might end up packing up and leaving town because he's trying his whole life away in that town simply because of what she's done to him. So if you, what I'm trying to do is get people to open their minds up to seeing what love is. In the probably 50s and 60s, a lot of people would fall in love like that and they say, oh man, he's chasing her all the time. He's really in love. He really loves her. Nowadays, it's, oh, he's stalking her. He's after sex. Everything's, I noticed with females, especially, but probably males as well, is that when someone shows someone attention, it's always over sex. The problem is the people who are have sex on their mind all the time. That's all they say because that's what's on their mind. It's the saying about it. We see other people by what we are. So a criminal will see you as a criminal. A narcissist will see you as another narcissist trying to do a narcissist deal on them. When in reality, you're actually a nice person who's got honor and justice and you're a righteous soul and you just want to get the narcissist and kick their butt. It's got nothing to do with trying to beat the narcissist or something because a narcissist is innocent. The narcissist is a narcissist and nasty. And they need their butt kicked. So that's what the righteous person wants to do, kick their butt. So we see things from what we are. So if you get a young female who's highly sexed, and there's plenty in this day and age, then you find that if a guy approaches her and he's actually a nice guy, and she doesn't want a nice guy because he's not highly sexed. So she wants she gets the attention of a nice guy. She sees him as wanting to have sex with her and do things to her while she goes out with Mr. Hunk, the man who appeals to her mind, not her heart. When you fall in love with someone with your heart, there are no limitations. Your heart does not see what the eyes see or what the mind decides is right or wrong. The heart sees the spirit of the other person and says that's the right one. And that's it. So it doesn't matter if the person is crippled, older, younger, and things like that. It's love. That's what love's all about. That's what all those love songs are all about. What is it? Unrequited love. People who fall in love with someone deeply, very genuinely, very sweetly, and the other person's basically told them where to go. And so the sad songs are about the fact that they never got the person they loved, and they know from that moment on they're going to marry someone they don't love. And they're going to try their hardest to make the relationship work while they're walking down the street with their arm around their wife or husband, and the one they really love walks past and they look down at the ground and just sad. And there's one I've read about where the other one woke up in the morning. The person who married the wrong person, it's a woman, she married the wrong person, and she woke up in the morning calling the other man's name in her dream, and her husband heard it, and they had a big fight and stuff. It was in an article I read, and you can't help it. You see, it's natural to marry and to have children and to have a family. Okay, it's what we all unconsciously, subconsciously, in a blueprint to do the thing we do. Even atheists do it, and yet they don't like the family life. Feminists hate it, and chauvinists hate it, but they still do it because it's in their blueprint. They can't control it to a fair degree. So, yeah, it's just sad. But the saddest part has been the one who's neglected, the one who's disliked, and the one who fell in love with their heart and soul to someone who only knows love, their version of a very fake, plastic, convenient, on paper love in their mind. And one way of putting it is two people who are spiritually in love don't need to get married and they don't need to write it down on a piece of paper and sign a document because that's materialistic love. Spiritual love is love forever.